We're going to hear from Gregg Freeman of Kwikbond Polymers. Gregg Freeman is the Director of Business Development with Kwikbond Polymers.
I want to talk a little bit about what was originally the Western Bridge Preservation Partnership local agency outreach, kind of turned into a national local agency outreach, and we're looking for more help, and I think appreciate having been invited here because we do need support. So hopefully after I explain what we're up to here, maybe we can get a little more support, and I'll give you guys an idea where we are with this whole thing. Our first goal is to develop a 1-hour presentation. Going to go out to states, ask for their support through LTAP as well, federal highway, local federal highway folks, to try to get the local agencies together, present these modules. So we're going to need some support for that. We want to, one of the goals initially was to consider how bridge preservation is part of an asset management plan. What types of activities would be considered part of that preservation program? And also we want to coordinate our efforts with other training things, activities that are going on for locals. The NCPP, what they're doing training for locals as well. What NHI is doing, and the AASHTO TC3 program is really growing as well. Talked a little bit about that yesterday. I'll talk a little more about that as well today. That's our scope. The other part of that is to try to get local agencies. I don't think we have, are there any local agency folks in this room? Okay, we do have a couple, that's good. There's been an effort to get more local folks involved, and I think AASHTO's come up with some rulings. Well, I don't know where it is. There's some funding program in place for locals to attend and be supported to attend the regional partnership meetings as well. We want the city and county engineers, designers, and maintenance crews and inspectors actually as well. We're going to reach out to the local federal highway. We've got some local federal highway folks here. We're going to start out and see if we get support from LTAP. We have some kind of models. There's been some discussion about what Indiana's doing with funding for locals, and through LTAP, that's kind of our model agency. We don't have the Indiana folks here like we have, but they're doing a better job than anybody else. They've been putting on these annual presentations for the locals. It's very well attended. You guys have done some training with Indiana. They've incorporated a gas tax. I think there was some discussion yesterday how they're required to put together an asset management plan with bridge preservation as part of that to get funding, and there's a whole bunch of funding now being funneled through to the locals in Indiana. So the whole combination of this training along with funding really blowing up, and locals are getting a lot of money. They're learning how to determine what to do with that funding, and a lot of it's going into preemptive preservation practices and things like that. Really effective, and it's a great model, and so we're hoping to see some of that travel around the other parts of the country as well. The first part, I'm co-chair of this outreach with Travis Kinney from Oregon. The first part of this presentation is more in line with who are we, why are we here, why do you want to come and learn about preservation, and then also what is an asset management plan and what is a bridge preservation plan. Various local agencies, some have a lot of assets, some have a lot of money, some have a lot of folks and people involved, maintenance crews, some have nothing, they know nothing. We don't want to overwhelm some of these groups. So we're trying to take a really broad perspective, but ultimately we want to also give them a broad overview of what an asset management plan with bridge preservation as part of that might look like, and how do we dial that to help be supportive to various agencies that have sometimes limited funds and limited assets as well. Who are we? Why focus on preservation? How to identify bridges for preservation. Also, a big part of that is looking at funding, other things that I already mentioned, but this will be the first part of the presentation. Is kind of an introduction. Then we want to get into some activities module. So far, you can see we've got a group of, I don't know what, 8 or 10 preservation activities. We had various industry folks put together 2 or 3 slides. Long term, what we want to do is we want to have a lot of these activities modules. So before we go out, we can solicit the locals to get involved. What do you want to learn about? What kind of activities? So we started out with these initially, and then when we started looking at the Bridge Preservation Guide, we realized that based on the guidance provided by the Federal Highway Bridge Preservation Guide, they're looking at condition-based and cyclical-based activities, and we started to look at some of those, and they were more broad. So here's where we reach out to the folks in this room And I think there's a couple slides. But if you look at the Bridge Preservation Guide, you'll see here there's some cyclical and condition-based activities that we didn't even think about until we looked at more broadly. We want to synchronize our efforts with other efforts. And the Federal Highway has pretty concise efforts that are in the Preservation Guide that look at cyclical and condition-based activities. We're here looking out to you guys to see if there's anyone in this room that wants to look at some other activities and help us develop further modules that we can include and offer up. So when we go out to various groups, they can pick and choose modules based on what we've developed, and we can kind of customize these presentations as we go travel around the country. Support from industry folks that want to go out. We're putting these modules together with some really good notes. So even though it's just 2 or 3 slides, anyone could go out, look at the notes, and kind of present this information. We do want to grow this. We want support. You guys can reach out to John or Ed or myself. We really do need help. So if anyone feels that they have little expertise, they'd be willing to put 2 or 3 slides together and help us grow this thing, please support that. We also have a monthly call. I don't know if we have anyone in the Northeast region that's been getting on our calls. Reach out to Darlene or Ed, John, or myself. Please get on board and help us. We really do want to grow this effort. So when we do get out, hopefully in a short period of time, we're getting really close, and we want to start presenting. The more support we get, the more attendance we're going to get, and that's a big part of what we're trying to do. I'm not going to go through what these various activities are too much. Like I said, we have 3 slides. We wanted to kind of get into why do this particular activity, what are the costs, can these activities be performed with local crews, some kind of idea of benefit cost, just give them an idea. So here's some of the activities. You can see joint systems, thin overlays, bridge washing and cleaning. A lot of these activities kind of correspond, pocket guides that are being developed through the Federal Highway ETG and TC3, some of their training. All this is kind of lining up, NHI training, NCPP training. It's all kind of, we're trying to keep our efforts all in line together and support each other and share the same message. That's a big part of it as well. So you can see some of these really line up with what we're doing already. Penetrating sealers, different from crack sealing, waterproof membrane. The ETG does have some efforts around the communication plan, and that's going to grow as well. And as we have our monthly calls and then our annual calls, we're trying to correlate more of this. There's a newsletter also that you can view. So a lot of this stuff is also available on the NCPP website. Here's the video that we showed yesterday. We talked about the pocket guides, the phone apps, future pocket guides. One thing I do want to go back, see how all this is kind of, we're trying to share the same message with the TC3 program. It's a pretty robust program, this information that's available. I don't know how many states in this room have paid. Quite a few states around the country have already paid for this program. And as I also mentioned, the locals have access to this through the LTAP, which was funded through the Federal Highway. They've done some video, really cool videos actually, if you have a chance to get on there, that kind of go along with the pocket guides that were being developed through the Federal Highway. So this whole preservation for local agencies message is really getting pushed right now, but if the locals don't know about it, if they don't show up, if they don't show up to the meetings, if we don't hear the folks in this room go out and kind of get support from the locals, it's never going to trickle down. Some states, a lot of the assets, the bridges, is owned and controlled by the local agencies. So we really do have to get this message out. It's quite important. There's a lot of information on the TSP2 page. I don't know how many of you in this room have had a chance to really get out there and look at it. Between the efforts that these guys are doing with their multi-day, you're doing like 1 and 2 day trainings, right? I think Indiana, you did some 2-day trainings, and some other states as well. They're supporting what we're doing. We're supporting what they're doing. A lot of the locals do have assets, and they do have funding, and they do have folks involved. So we'll kind of try to push it out and get this multi-day training. LTAP is doing some of the stuff really well. Like I said, what Indiana's doing, multi-day training is really, there's some folks in this room, some industry folks. You guys been at the Indiana thing, and it's pretty robust, right? Don't you think? They're doing such a great job. Anyway, we want to continue that. I hope that we get further support, even if anyone in this room wants to get on the cause and support and just kind of listen in and see what we're trying to do and see if you can help and support this effort. Please do. Does anyone have any questions? Well, get involved if you can. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.